The front face of this thing communicates something no motorhome on the road today has ever communicated, and that thing is, we are not even trying to compete with you. Full transparency right up front. What you are looking at is an AI-generated concept design called the Aurora. No factory, no production line, no showroom. Pure imagination. And that is exactly why it is worth analyzing. Because when you remove real-world constraints, you see what design is actually capable of becoming. And the Aurora pushes that harder than almost anything I have sat with. Here is what we are doing today. We are walking the exterior. And there is something happening at the rear of this vehicle I have genuinely not seen on any motorhome concept before, real or fictional. I am saving that for when we get there. Then we are going inside, because the glass-to-body ratio on this thing tells a very specific story about what the interior experience was designed to feel like. Then powertrain and tech. And finally my verdict, including the one thing I would change, and the one thing I would point to in a design school critique as genuinely brilliant. Let's get into it, Start at the front. Because the front face of a motorhome is its opening argument. It tells you everything the designer wants you to feel before the vehicle moves a single meter. The Aurora's face is aggressive in a way that luxury motorhomes almost never allow themselves to be. You have got a wide, flat lower valance borrowed directly from supercar design language. Not SUV, not truck, supercar. That diffuser-style lower lip sits beneath a clean black fascia that is split by horizontal LED blades. Not loops, not curves. Blades. Straight, parallel, surgical. The message is precision. The message is that every decision here was deliberate. Above that sits the windscreen. And this is where it gets interesting for you as the person who would ever sit behind it. That glass is raked at an angle that is steep enough to suggest aerodynamic intent, but wide enough that your field of vision, sitting in that cockpit, would be extraordinary. We are talking about a driver's view that most Class A coaches simply cannot offer because their front faces are too upright, too boxy. The Aurora solves that. The badge, a geometric V motif, inverted triangle, sits dead center on the nose. It is clean, brand agnostic, and it works. It feels like a concept house mark rather than a manufacturer's logo, which is exactly right for a vehicle that exists in imagination space. Move around the side, and the first thing you register is the glass. This is a concept that has fully committed, to glazing as a design philosophy. The side window band runs almost the entire length of the habitable section of the vehicle. Floor to roofline, practically. And that decision tells you something about the interior brief. Whoever designed this was thinking about the person inside before they were thinking about the person outside. The roofline is where this concept does something unexpected. It does not arch. It does not crown. It runs nearly flat from the A-pillar to the tail, with only the most subtle upward kick at the very rear. In a vehicle this long, and based on these proportions, we are likely looking at somewhere between 13 and 15 meters. A flat roofline is a bold call. It makes the Aurora look lower than it is. It makes it look faster than it will ever be. It makes it look more like a private jet with wheels than a home on a highway. The graphic treatment on the lower body panels, those angular, slashing cut lines in dark contrast, break the white surface tension perfectly. Without them, this thing risks looking sterile. With them, it has movement, even when it is parked. The wheels deserve a full paragraph because the wheel choice on a concept like this is a signal, not a decoration. These are multi-spoke turbine-style rims in gloss black, large diameter, low-profile rubber. That combination says, this vehicle was not designed for campsite gravel. It was designed for motorway at 3-digit speeds, and for the hotel arrival court where someone takes a photo of it. The stance is wide. The wheel arches are filled. This is a motorhome designed to be seen arriving. The aerodynamic work here is not decorative, or at least it is not meant to be read that way. The flush door handles. The sealed underbody implied by that low front valance. The way the side mirrors are replaced by what appear to be camera housings flush to the A-pillar. Each of those decisions reduces drag. And drag reduction in a vehicle this size is not a performance conversation. It is a range conversation. Every fraction of drag coefficient improvement you engineer into a 14-meter electric coach adds meaningful kilometers to your real-world range. The Aurora seems to understand this. The paint is white, but not the white of a rental fleet. This is a warm, slightly pearl white that picks up gold from the interior ambient lighting bleeding through that enormous glass band. In direct light, the panels are clean and architectural. In ambient light, they glow. That is not an accident. The designer knew exactly how light would interact with this much glass and this surface finish. Now, I told you at the start, there is something happening at the rear of this vehicle I have not seen before. You are going to want to stay for that. But first, if what the exterior is telling us about scale, light philosophy, and glass commitment is accurate, then what is happening on the other side of that window band is going to be remarkable. Let me walk you through what I think is almost certainly happening inside the Aurora. This is where I have to be transparent with you. We do not have interior renders of the Aurora. What we do have is the most information-dense exterior I have analyzed in months. And experienced design analysts know this. A resolved exterior always tells you the truth about the interior brief. So what follows is detective work, and I will flag where I am inferring versus where the exterior gives us near certainty. Start with the ceiling. Those wheels, large diameter, likely 24 to 26-inch rims, give us a scale reference. Cross-reference with the roofline and the base of the body, and my estimate is a standing ceiling height of between 1.95 and 2.1 meters throughout the habitable zone. That matters enormously for daily living. The difference between a 1.85-meter ceiling and a 2.05-meter ceiling is not 20 centimeters. It is the difference between a space you tolerate and a space you relax in. The Aurora, based on its proportions, gives you the latter. In a vehicle this length, you are likely working with 5 zones: a driver's cockpit, a forward lounge, a mid-kitchen and dining area, a sleeping quarter, and a rear bathroom or utility zone. The logic of those placements is not arbitrary. It follows the thermal gradient of the vehicle, the proximity to mechanicals, and critically, the view access from that dominant glass band. Now imagine sitting in the lounge zone of the Aurora. You are surrounded on one side by a glass wall that runs from roughly mid-shin height to the ceiling. Natural light is not entering this space. It is flooding it. The 2026 trend in luxury RV design across every major concept from manufacturers, including Mercedes, Lexus, and BMW, points directly at this. Panoramic glass is not a feature anymore. It is the feature. The Aurora understood this before most of them. Evening in this space, with the interior ambient lighting reflecting off that pearl white exterior and the landscape outside, that is not a motorhome experience. That is a hotel suite experience that happens to be moving. The kitchen zone, positioned mid-vehicle based on proportions, would in a real engineering scenario feature induction cooking rather than gas for 2 reasons. First, an electric powertrain means no onboard LPG infrastructure. Second, induction in an enclosed space at this finish level is simply the cleaner, safer, and more designerly choice. Surface area here would be limited but intelligent. This is not a family camping kitchen. This is a professional-grade galley designed for 2 people who cook well. Storage in a kitchen like this goes vertical. Custom integrated cabinetry flush to the walls, handleless, likely touch latch. Nothing interrupting the visual plane. The sleeping zone sits toward the rear, past the mid-axle. That positioning is intentional. It places the bed over the smoothest part of the air suspension ride, away from the mechanical noise of the drive axle, and it gives the bedroom access to whatever is happening at the tail end of this vehicle. Which brings me back to the thing I promised you. The rear of the Aurora features what appears to be a full-width panoramic glass element. Not a window, not a porthole, a full structural glass section across the entire tail. If that is what I think it is, then the sleeping zone of this concept has a view from the bed that no production motorhome on Earth currently offers. You would wake up to whatever landscape you parked facing. Unobstructed. Floor to ceiling. That is the detail. That is the decision I said I was saving. And in 15 years of analyzing motorhome design, real and conceptual, I have not seen it resolved this cleanly before. The bathroom in a 14 to 15-meter concept at this positioning level has the physical space to include a walk-in shower with real standing room. Not a wet room compromise. A shower. Gray water management in a fully electric concept like this would likely use a closed-loop processing system, meaning the Aurora, if engineered for reality, could operate for extended periods completely off-grid without any waste management stops. That is the future of luxury motorhome travel, and it is closer than most people think. Cockpit. Back to the front. The cockpit sightline from that raked windscreen would be exceptional. The driver sits low relative to the nose, which creates a sensation closer to piloting an aircraft than driving a coach. Digital instrument cluster, likely a single sweeping display arc, heads-up projection capability, and autonomous highway mode integration would all be implied by a concept at this level. You would not need to touch the wheel between city departure and your destination. The Aurora would manage it. Smart systems. The 2026 Luxury Motorhome Intelligence Standard, based on what is emerging from real manufacturers, now includes AI climate learning, predictive route-based charging stops, satellite connectivity, and 5G onboard Wi-Fi. The Aurora, as an unconstrained concept, would carry all of it. The interior ambient lighting system in a concept like this would shift temperature throughout the day automatically. Warm gold in the morning, cool white for productivity, deep amber for evening. The glass itself, based on current smart glass technology, would switch from transparent to privacy-tinted at one touch. Living inside the Aurora would feel less like operating a vehicle. Let me be clear about how I approach this section with every concept I analyze. I never invent fake specs. What I do is look at the nearest real-world engineering equivalents and project what a vehicle of this size and positioning would realistically require, if someone were ever brave enough to actually build it. The Aurora is a full electric concept. At this length and weight class, we are likely talking 18,000 to 22,000 kilograms unladen. You would need a dual motor setup, one axle per motor, with a combined output in the range of what current heavy EV coaches like the BYD long-range bus platform or the Mercedes e-Actros 600 generate. Real-world equivalents exist. The engineering is not fantasy. Battery capacity in a near-future production scenario would need to sit between 400 and 600 kilowatt-hours to deliver a usable range of 400 to 500 kilometers at motorhome speeds, because at 90 to 100 kilometers per hour, aerodynamic drag drops significantly and the efficiency numbers improve dramatically. That flat roofline on the Aurora is not just aesthetic. It is doing aerodynamic work. The solar roof integration, and the Aurora appears to have a clean, uninterrupted roof surface built for exactly this, would not power the drive system. Let me be honest about that. It would sustain the interior systems, climate, lighting, refrigeration, connectivity. Off-grid for 48 to 72 hours on solar alone is a realistic target with current panel efficiency. That is the freedom that changes how you travel. The six-wheel configuration, 3 axles visible in the rear three-quarter view, gives the Aurora something most concepts do not have: genuine all-surface stability. Not off-road in the aggressive sense, but unpaved mountain access, coastal track, private estate approach road. The Aurora does not need to stay on motorways. That is a capability most luxury coaches cannot honestly claim. Autonomous highway mode, at the near-future engineering standard this concept implies, means you engage it at the motorway on-ramp and disengage at your destination. Everything between is handled. You are already in the lounge. You are already living in it. Right. My honest take. What the Aurora does genuinely well, and I mean exceptionally well, is it makes a case for the full glass side profile as a philosophy rather than a feature. Every concept I have seen try this before has compromised it. A band of glass here, a strip there. The Aurora commits. The entire habitable side of this vehicle is glazing. And that single decision cascades into everything. The interior light quality, the connection to the landscape, the reason you would choose to live in this over staying in a hotel. That decision is correct. What seems impractical, and I will be direct here because honest analysis is more useful to you than praise, is the wheel and tire specification. Those large diameter, low-profile rims on a 20,000 kilogram coach are a styling choice, not an engineering one. Real-world vibration absorption at that tire profile, at that weight, on any road surface that is less than perfect, you would feel it inside. The Aurora would need substantially larger sidewall tires in a production scenario, and that would change the stance. It would look less dramatic. That is the cost of making something rideable rather than photographable. The most impressive detail, the one I would point to in a design school critique, is the rear glass element. That full-width panoramic tail section, positioned to give the sleeping zone a completely unobstructed rear view, is the single most resolved idea in this entire concept. It is unexpected, it is functional, and it elevates the ownership experience in a way that no specification list can communicate. You have to imagine waking up to it. The one thing I would change, and this is specific, is the front badge placement. The V motif sitting flush to the center of the nose works in isolation, but at speed, at distance, it disappears into the dark fascia. It reads as anonymous. A concept this resolve deserves a more confident brand statement at the front face. Pull it forward, raise it slightly, give it dimensional depth. Make it legible from 50 meters. What the Aurora signals about where luxury mobility is heading is this. The line between a premium private residence and a premium private motorhome is collapsing. The 2026 trend data is consistent across every segment. Luxury buyers want spaces that feel like hotels, perform like technology platforms, and travel without compromise. The Aurora is the most complete single-image argument for that future I have analyzed. It is a concept. It is fictional. It is AI-generated. And it is still one of the most resolved motorhome designs I have covered on this channel. Here is the comment question for today, and I want a real answer from you. Full panoramic rear glass for the bedroom view, or a private enclosed sleeping zone with no exterior visibility? Which would you actually want to wake up in? Drop it below. I read every one. If this kind of analysis is what you come to YouTube for, subscribing is simply the most efficient way to not miss the next concept. New designs are coming in fast, and some of what is in the pipeline is going to surprise you.